Nature of state in Marxism. Marx himself never tried to give a universal theory of the state. Therefore, the model Marxist and neo-Marxist, they find two different strands within the Marxist conception of the state. The two different strands are: 1. The instrumental theory of the state. 1. Sources. Das Kapital. From Marx's perspective, state is merely an instrument at the hands of those who control the economy. 1. Relative autonomy theory of the state. Bonapartism, very strong state and exec, society demands order as it is in shambles. Fill the institution with your own people, based on the relative autonomous view of the state. E.g., post-COVID, strong execs, China after 20th Party Congress, to tackle globalization. 1. The instrumental theory of the state. 1. Sources. Das Kapital. From Marx, state is merely an instrument at the hands of those who control the economy, therefore he says state is an exec committee of bourgeois class. Later on, Marxist scholars like Lenin also describe state as a class institution, and therefore state represents irreconcilability of class struggle. Instrumentalist theory challenges the Hegelian view that state is march of God on this earth. The instrumentalist view says that the liberal notion of neutral state is a myth. The instrumental view is based on the force theory of the state. When social contract theorists believe that state is the creation of the will of people, the instrumental Marxists believe that state represents the subjugation of the weak by the strong. Relative autonomy theory of state. Sources. 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte. According to relative autonomy theory, state is not merely an instrument at the hands of capitalist class. Rather, state belongs to superstructure and it has got its own existence, and there will come many situations where state will exert its own control and dictates on the other structures of society. This is based on the Gramscian notion of structure having their own identity. The structuralist view can be called as a golden mean between two extremes, where one extreme is represented by liberals who find state completely neutral and the other extreme of instrumentalist Marxists who find state as an instrument of capitalist class. The relative autonomous state is linked with the concept of Bonapartism or Bonapartist state. Bonapartism means a very strong exec. According to Marx, there are certain specific historical situations when the state becomes very strong and state is seen as the solution to every disorder in society. The specific historical situation may be described as: 1. When there are no clear-cut modes of production and there are multiple classes existing without any clarity, WRT who dominates the modes of production. 1. E.g., India and Pak post-independence. 2. When a military coup happens in certain society, military exerts itself over the existing institutions of society. 2. E.g., Myanmar. 3. A country which needs a reconstruction post-war situation. 3. E.g., Ukraine. Thus we find that under unique circumstances the state becomes the driving force of the society. E.g., Mussolini's concepts of corporate state represents the Bonapartist state. Thus state itself becomes an arena to resolve class antagonisms. But it should be kept in mind that state is only relatively autonomous and not completely autonomous. In the situation of any crisis, state will ultimately side with the capitalist class only. E.g., after 2008 financial crisis, the USA state under the Democrats only helped the capitalist class rather than helping the common people who suffered due to subprime mortgage housing crisis. Bonapartist state can be considered as the capitalist attempt to go for counter-revolution. Similarly, Gramsci has highlighted the in opaque state. It becomes very difficult to understand the true nature of state. The two views of Marxist theory of state are helpful in understanding the nature of post-colonial states as well. The two views also determine the political strategy which will be required for communist parties to succeed. If state is autonomous, then there is no need of violent revolution, rather one can go for capturing the state institution. If state is instrumental, then a violent revolution is must, and Communist Party must aim for the destruction of the state. Bob Joseph. Operational autonomy of the state. E.g., acts of state might harm the capitalists also. Ecological autonomy of the state. E.g., social institutions having importance in development of the capitalist institution. Future of state. Post-national state, capitalism, globalization of capitalism. Work sphere state, highly skilled, efficient and meritorious, competition, capitalist values, FDI. Ralph Miliband, Nikos Polentz's debate. Context. In 1960s and 70s there is a rise of behavioralism in political science. Behaviorists like David Easton are trying to incorporate the scientific method in order to study political science. According to David Easton, there is no need to study the state and the political concepts like power, rather we should study the systems of which state is just one element. This led to under-theorization of state. Miliband and Poulentz's both call the systems approach or the behaviorist approach as bourgeois social science. Thus they get back to Marxism in order to understand and theorize about the nature of state in capitalist societies like USA, Britain, etc. Ralph Miliband. Book, The State in Capitalist Societies. Political Power and Social Classes. Ralph Miliband goes for instrumentalist view of the state. For Miliband, state act as a direct tool into the hand of those who possess economic power. They use it to preserve their economic dominance, preserve their political power and stabilize the capitalist society by preventing threats to their positions. To Miliband, state was run by number of elites who captured the central institutions of the state. The elites are cabinet minister, bureaucrats, member of parliament, military officers and top judges. Miliband believed that all the elite shared a basic interest in the preservation of capitalism and defense of private property. According to Miliband, managerial revolution is a myth. Despite managers coming from any strata of society, the decision-making is always done in the interest of the capitalist class. To sum up, Miliband argued that there is a direct interference by the members of ruling elite in that state. Their dominance is further cemented by the process of legitimation whereby even if non-elite come to managerial position, they ultimately ends up serving the capitalist class. Nikos Poulentz's article, The Problem of Capitalist State, New Left View. Poulentz's represent structuralist approach. A structuralist approach emphasizes the importance of sociostructure and minimizes the importance of actions of individuals in society. He criticizes Miliband and calls his empirical approach too simplistic. Poulentz's describes state as a factor of cohesion of social formation. This implies that state was vital in maintaining the stability of capitalistic system. It was not necessary for members of the ruling class to occupy elite positions within the states. The existence of the capitalist system was itself sufficient to ensure that the state functioned to benefit the ruling class. This is so because the background of the members of state elite was of little importance. It is not their class origin, rather it was the class position which they occupied within the institution of the state which determined their behavior as well as the behavior of the state. Poulentz's bring in the concept of relative autonomy of the state and claims that the capitalist state best serves the interests of capitalist class only when the members of this class do not participate directly as the politically governing class. Therefore, to some extent, state was free from the direct interference of the ruling class, and relative autonomy of the state was essential to represent and preserve capital effectively. Poulentz's gives following reasons for relative autonomy of the state. 1. Capitalist class itself is not free from internal divisions, and thus state must have freedom to preserve their common interests. 2. If capitalist class rule directly, their power might have weakened due to infighting, and therefore relative autonomy of state allows it to rise above the sectional interest within the capitalist class and to represent that class as a whole. 3. The state must have some freedom to make concession to subject class so that they do not protest against the capitalist framework. 4. Relative autonomy of the state enables it that it is working in the public interest and national dignity. 4. Thus relative autonomy helps state to hide its class character. Conclusion. The Miliband-Poulentz's debate is yet unresolvable, although Bob Jessup through its concept of operational autonomy of the state tries to solve this, but the debate has definitely enriched the Marxian epistemology. Bob Jessup. Context. He is trying to predict the future of capitalist state. For him, the nature of economy has changed. We have moved from Fordism to post-Fordism, i.e. we have moved from assembly line production to knowledge-driven globalized economy. Therefore, the capitalist state is no longer a Keynesian welfare state, but it has become Schumpeterian post-national workfare state. Bob Jessup. Book, Flexibility of Politics. In this book, Bob Jessup introduces three concepts. 1. Operational autonomy of the state. 2. Ecological dominance of capitalism. 3. Post-national workfare state. By operational autonomy, Jessup is trying to take a midway path between Miliband's instrumental approach and Poulentz's relatively autonomous state. Like Marxists, Jessup believes that capitalism influences Western societies like North America and Europe, but unlike thinkers such as Miliband, he does not believe that capitalists directly run the state, and unlike Poulentz's, he does not believe that state necessarily always serves the interest of capitalists. Therefore, state has an operational autonomy. This implies that state will not always take decisions which are helpful for capitalists. A lot of time state's decision will be harmful for capitalists as well. In the age of globalization, capitalism has an ecological dominance. This implies that as compared to non-capitalist element in society, the capitalist elements have more dominance over non-capitalist forces. Therefore, dominance of capitalism is not monopolistic, rather it is relative or ecological. Therefore the role of state is only regulationist. Bob Jessup calls this approach, this role of state is strategic. Relational approach state is only providing avenues, institutions like courts and other resolution solving mechanism, but it does not actually take part in the dispute resolution, hence the resolution will be self-led, under the ambit of the sphere set by the state. By this he means, state is a site for resolution of class differences and other competitive forces in the society. The state only provides the strategy, policies and regulations. Bob Jessup also tells about the future of the state in capitalist society. According to him, we are moving into post-Fordism, which implies a knowledge-driven economy. This economy demands workers to be skilled, and capitalist state require a lot of investment. Therefore the state's role is to provide skills to its workers and to make itself competitive so that it can attract investment and capital from across the world. State is not responsible for ensuring jobs to all its workers, rather state should only provide skills. This is known as post-national workfare state.